We live in color, emotional beings. From moment to moment, it can change.
Some of the research that we started to do was on the long-term social media use and our ability to be able to engage with an audience. But in so doing that, the realization came up that we can't really separate AI's influence on social media. It's not exactly one and the same thing, but research has shown that the platform algorithms are actually shaping interaction norms. So it depends on what platform we happen to be on. And a lot of us are using multiple platforms. But for example, Twitter X now encourages brevity, certain number of characters, and that's it. Instagram is more based on what I would call visual storytelling. So that's how that one functions. But as we use it more and more, we're actually beginning to see that users are unconsciously adapting to those norms on platforms that they're using. And that in and of itself is impacting their versatility in audience engagement.
Right, right. Definitely, because the way that you communicate has a lot to do with how you have been engineered to communicate. If you think about it, you have some people who come from very quiet, peaceful homes. Their communication style is very different from a person that comes from a very loud and bodacious home life. So the problem with social media and AI shaping how you communicate, it's almost like it's taking away your natural um, communication skill set. It's reshaping that and rewiring you. For instance, TikTok is created to have very short form content. And so the attention span is now being altered because of that. The attention span to not only watch what someone is doing, but also to engage with your audience. Is your attention span being shortened? Are you expecting too much out of your audience? And I don't want to say, are you willing to work for uh, the audience engagement that you're looking for? But are you willing to work for it, or do you just assume that the first two dance steps that you hit or the first three notes that you hit, the audience is going to go wild? That's not that's not a normal way of viewing things. We have been somewhat reshaped in our expectations based on social media and AI.
There's actually something to be said about what they're calling self-presentation and feedback loops. And it's being called a hyper-awareness of audience feedback. And that is relying more on external validation that we had talked about previously. And
Yes.
it's also that constant feedback that we get online. For instance, the likes, the shares, the comments. So we've learned to buy into that. And we're also less able to carry on a conversation. It's becoming more of, I'll call it a narrative or a monologue, but this ability to actually dialogue, has really, really gone downhill, for want of a better way to put it.
Sure, sure. Well, we don't have the attention span anymore. Dialogue takes listening, Listening takes a skill of patience, or I should say, a character of patience. If you don't have that any longer, if that's been sliced in half, then I don't want to listen to something for 20 minutes. You have 2 minutes of my time, and then I check out. Or I don't want to take the time to explain or dive deep into a subject or topic. That's whether I am in a business meeting or I am standing on a stage. I don't want to take the time to really dive into what I'm doing. I just want you to, start to, as soon as I start to phonate, whether I'm singing or speaking, I want you to be completely locked in, completely engaged. Just like when I post something on social media, I start to see hearts and likes and comments. And it's almost like we now don't even know how to communicate um, in conversation, in presentation. And that presentation can be, uh, uh, us speaking about something or us playing an instrument or us singing, and any type of performance where, because performing is a mode of communication. Singing is a way to communicate a message set to melody and harmony. You know, we no longer have the ability, or I should say, some of us no longer have the ability to give and allow the audience to absorb what we're giving them. We just want instantaneous results. And that's because of the world that we now live in.
It's unfortunate, and that reduced attention span is partially, at least partially, connected to a cognitive overload.
Hmm.
Because when we're online, we're any social media, um, we're being bombarded
Hmm.
constantly,
Hmm.
and I think our generations that are growing up in this environment may be better able to juggle,
Hmm.
all of this information, but even they
Sure.
have a limit. Um,
Yes.
and I don't think that we're really seeing the repercussions of what's going to be happening with subsequent generations. Um,
Hmm.
it could take, let's see, maybe 50 years.
Hmm.
But if being on the computer and the internet can rewire your brain in a week,
Hmm. Yes.
consider, what this is doing long term. And then
Sure.
from an evolutionary perspective, we understand that certain things that we don't use anymore tend to fall by the wayside, sort of like an appendix. Um,
Sure.
what is going to happen cognitively if we rely so much on AI? Our ability to think and reason and make decisions, is
Hmm.
that all going to be turned over, out of our control? And we are no longer capable of doing it.
Well, I think we are already seeing a cognitive decline. When someone, and let's just start with Google, right? So years ago, when you wanted to find something out, you had to read a book. You
Mhm.
had to really, you had to go find a book on the topic that you wanted, and you had to go and read a book. Now you just Google a question, and then all of this information pops up. So cognitively, it took, okay, I have to think about what the topic is. I have to make sure that I am looking at the right perspective as far as the information that I want to learn on that topic. I have to go and find a book. See, all of these cognitive processes that you used to have to do, many years ago, you had to, if you really wanted to know something, you were going to work for it. Now,
Mhm.
it's just like, hey, Google, tell me, what, and whatever the question is, which is, it's a great tool. And this is the thing. I think AI and social media can be great tools, but there's this dichotomy of they are great tools, but there's a cognitive decline.
We live in color, emotional beings. From moment to moment, it can change.